What's going on, Commonwealth, and welcome back to another great episode of the Bluegrass Soccer Cast, your home for all things soccer right here in the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm Jimmy, and I am back. And a big shout out to John for holding down the fort a couple of weeks ago while I was out sick with whatever disease I had. Also, big thank you to Zach from Vamos Marauders for stepping in on a very, very short notice. John, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. I no longer feel like I'm gonna die, and I live in a whole new place now. So it is a totally different life for me, to say the least. But John, we have got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. But I always got to hit you with that icebreaker question to start our conversation off today. This week, I don't need any random generator. I know the question. What is your go-to Thanksgiving Day food?
Green bean casserole.
Ooh, what an interesting choice. Why?
Because it's good.
I mean, fair, right?
Like turkey is okay, but I think it's too basic. It's like what everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like everything else is just kind of normal food that people just cook at Thanksgiving.
Right.
And that's all it is, really. Green bean casserole is one of the few things I feel like only appears at Thanksgiving, or at least when I was growing up.
Yeah. I have made green bean casserole outside of the holiday season, but it just kind of feels weird, right? Like it feels wrong somehow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you're not too big on turkey. So what is
I'm
your
fine with turkey. I like turkey.
Okay.
I just feel it like as a Thanksgiving food, it's like the staple, so it's not really to me that big. Like it can't be number one.
Right. I think for me, this is the first year, so I went on this. I don't want to say diet. That's not right. I've had to completely eliminate dairy from my life for bodily reasons. So my answer typically is mashed potatoes, but those are obviously laced with butter and milk. So I don't know what it'll be this year. I love turkey. I'm a big turkey guy, especially turkey and dressing. Oh, by the way, is it dressing or stuffing, John?
It is stuffing.
Oh, okay. We got a Yankee here, folks.
I'm from Detroit.
Just like to remind everybody. No, dressing, stuffing, whatever. It's the same thing. We all know what it is. Unless you actually stuff it within your turkey, then it is stuffing, right?
And that's why it's called stuffing. Dressing makes no sense.
Well, it's because it's a side, and it dresses up the turkey, right? Like that's where that phrase comes from. Not buying it. You're not buying it at all for our listeners.
No. You don't. It doesn't dress up the turkey. Dressing something you put on top of something, not inside of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So fun times. I'm a big turkey guy. Like it's turkey and dressing. So dressing is probably my number one. Turkey number two. But then we got to get to the pies, man. Are you a pie guy, John? Or are you a cake guy?
I'm more of a cake guy. I'm not big on pie.
Oh, man. So at Thanksgiving, do you all typically have more cakes or more pies?
My family has pies. I'm just not big on it.
I love pie. Apple, blueberry, blackberry, peach, pecan, pumpkin, sweet potato. You put it in a pie crust, I'm going to eat it. My grandma on my mom's side, shout out to my grandma Lois. What up? Because I definitely know she's listening. No, she's not. She used to make this, she called it Italian pie. So she would brown up like ground beef and pour a jar of tomato sauce in it, mix it up, put it in a pie shell, melt some cheese on top. Oh man, living high on the hog on those days. But I know all our listeners definitely came here to hear about our Thanksgiving and all our other favorite foods. But let's dive on into some of our stories this week, John. First and foremost, I want to start with um, Lou City. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, but I do kind of want to recap everything that happened to close out their season since we didn't talk about it last week. They did fall at Charleston. The Battery got the better of them, allowing them to advance to the USL final, where they fell to Phoenix, right, John? Yeah, to Phoenix.
Battery, yeah,
Yeah.
Phoenix won.
Mm-hmm. Charleston got the better of Lou City early and just stayed on top of them through the majority of the game. Lou City once again struggled to restart after a slow start. Kyle Adams did his best to try and save the team, especially when they were down to 10 men, but there's just not much that they could do. The attack again was poor the whole game. Coach Cruz didn't really set his guys up for a lot of success on the offensive end, in my opinion. So, John, kind of what were your thoughts on the game, and then how do you kind of want to wrap up, or what are your thoughts on wrapping up this season for Lou City?
They it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. They overperformed in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Indeed.
So it's gonna be curious where they go. Do they realize they overperform? Do they understand that, or do they be a little more complacent, type thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where do they kind of fall, this offseason? Do they rest on their laurels and be like, hey, we made it for a ninth straight year? Or do they realize, holy smokes, we might have made it to an Eastern Conference final for the ninth year in a row, but we are nowhere near close, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know personally for me, when I'm looking into this offseason, they've got a lot of questions to answer. But most importantly, they've got to find somebody who can spark the attack from the bench. So at least at the start of next season, that's what I'm really looking for. Maybe that person comes in and eventually is a starter, but they've got to find somebody that they can bring off the bench to spark the offense in the second half, or heck, even in the middle of the first half if they're playing as terrible as they did against Charleston.
True. I honestly, in all honesty, I haven't. It's been so long
I
since
had
I
to
saw
watch it
that
today.
game.
That's the only reason I have fresh
I
knowledge.
didn't get a chance to rewatch it to refresh myself, and there's been so much other news lately.
Oh yeah.
That game's like so far out of my mind.
Yeah. Well, so as we're kind of looking, previewing the offseason here for Lou City, Coach Cruz, he's got a lot to look at and a lot of this roster to kind of turn over and retool. And I talked about from the front end, he talked about in an interview building from a stronger back end because it continually kept getting exposed time and time again. Um, John, when you're kind of looking this into the offseason for Lou City, what is one thing that you think they have to have?
I don't think they need to have anything per se. I think they need to let
Mm.
go of some people.
Ooh, okay. So if you had to let go of one person, who's your number one target for them to let go?
Oh,
Because I have an
I'm not.
answer.
I'm not fully sure on exactly, but there's all this talks on New City Twitter about like the core, however
Mm-hmm.
they call them, the guys who have been around forever, type thing that they need to go, or some need to stay, some need to go. So I'm not. I don't know exactly like which ones. It's all to me. That's all. That's Coach Cruz's call of who he feels is more important to the squad or not. But I feel like there is more. There's too much reliance on that core,
Yeah,
either by like the front office, by fan pressure or whatever type thing. there's too much of like this core needs to perform, and I think that those players feel that pressure, and that has led to some mistakes or trying to still perform at a level they can't do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree. I don't know how much does the core players have left in them. How far can they push? Can they push for a 10th Eastern Conference final appearance in a row? I don't think so. And to me, I'm going to look at Brian Ownby. Again, don't know contract situations, or anything like that. But Brian Ownby, is he somebody that continues, or can he continue to add to this team, or is it time to kind of do a soft reset on the attacking end and see what you could get for him? Do you send him to a USL League One team, which, when we were talking about our Lexington end of the season talk, that was the number one target I would have for them, a player of that ilk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know if he's going or not, but that would be the first person I would look at. I mean, Sean Toach has been an Iron Man for this team, but we've talked on this show before. Is being an Iron Man always a good thing?
I think it depends on the age and how long you've
Yeah.
been around. There's a sense where I feel like Ironmen can cost the team,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that could be where we're at right now. But there's also points where they help the team a lot. It's very interesting how they can play out.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed. But anyways, it was a little bit of a bittersweet ending, but I think even more to John's point a little bit ago, um, they overperformed in the playoff by getting to their ninth straight Eastern Conference final. I think both of us agree they're not too far off from being back at that same level. They just need to continue to push and continue to get younger talent in there, and not just any talent, like top quality talent that can go to other teams. And I mean, look at Josh Winder, as an example, right? Like, if you had a player like that all year, it'd be totally different, right? But and I think I put this in the tweet after the game. It was a roller coaster season, up and down, up and down, up and down, and the ride had to come to an end at some point, and it came to an end in Charleston. But should be a long off season for Lou City fans. We'll just kind of have to see how things go. They do have their open tryouts already set. I believe it's November 9th and 10th, or I'm sorry, December 9th and 10th or something like that. So, if there's anybody in Louisville who's not on the radar of Lou City or Lexington, Frankfort, Bowling Green, Cincinnati, Evansville, Indianapolis, if you are watching this or somebody sends you this clip, go try out for Lou City. Um, it can only help benefit you. It can only help benefit the Lou City to be the best team possible. Well, John, with that out of the way, let's go on and move over to Lexington, who they have a brand new manager. Lexington Sporting Club announced, what was it, last week, I believe, Darren, do what?
This past Friday, Darren Powell.
Yep, Darren Powell, the new head men's coach for the 2024 League One season. Powell brings extensive coaching experience. Most recently, he was the director of player development and an assistant coach for my MLS club, Inter Miami FC. He coached right hand in hand with Tata Martino. He coached Messi.
Kind
He
of. Kind of.
adjacent. They were on
He,
the same staff.
from what I know, he was mainly more like, I forget who's the kid that got called up to the national team.
Kaminsky.
Yeah, like his main thing was integrating the youth, like helping Tito, like these youth guys is how you're gonna bring them in. This is how you can bring them in. Like he helped with other stuff, but from my understanding of his role, last year at least at the club.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. It was more young guys, academy guys. This is how we're going to bring them into our system. And
Yeah.
he helped them with that transition, that sort of thing. But he also, prior, was the Inter Miami 2 coach
There
for
you go.
2
That's what I was gonna
years.
say. Mm-hmm.
He had been the coach of Fort Lauderdale.
The
Um,
strikers.
and he previously was the first ever coach for San Antonio FC. And
Mm-hmm.
so those early San Antonio teams that were kind of competitive, but still kind of a little shaky, he was there for them. And that's the thing. I think if you look at his resume in terms of how his teams finished, none of them finished that high in his system. But I think that's more his teams outside of San Antonio. One, San Antonio was brand new, so he was taking over a brand new club, and that was also when the USL was a little different.
Very
Um,
different. That was the MLS 2 days, right?
yeah, and then Fort Lauderdale and Inter Miami 2 were these kind of like B side teams. So that's real. That's very different. If you're operating a 2 team, it's really hard to necessarily be good because you could have a really good player and the team goes, all right, he's coming up here, and now your really good player is gone.
Right.
And so you're like you're having the scraps, the edge players that you're trying to figure out and win with, or the really young guys. I can say right now, from the little I know of Coach Powell, he has heavy focus on the youth and the academy. Um, he apparently already has a big target list going for players he wants to bring back, that type of thing. We only really have known of 2 players that are probably coming back for Lex, so it's going to be very interesting. Possibly a third could be back. I'm more hopeful on that side, so we'll see.
And just so we're all on the same page, who are those three?
So the 2 that have confirmed, basically confirmed, they didn't like outright say it, are Killian Fox, who said on Instagram, like, can't wait for year 6 in Lexington or something along those lines. And then I'm All Night yesterday in a video with the Jamaican national team, basically like the way he was phrasing stuff, it wasn't like I am coming back. It's just kind of like I'm expecting
Leaning
to come
the way
back
of
type
playing. Yeah.
thing. It like he never outright said like yes I'm coming back, but it kind of like sounded like that was his plan, was coming back, that sort of thing. The team has not officially announced this, and I'm hopeful, based on how things are going, that the youth is going to sign back, because for those that didn't see, Trevor Amon, legit the day after the final, signed with Sacramento. So my thought is, and then Olex Anderson's going right up with North Carolina, probably. So my thought is either Diouf is fielding a lot of offers right now, or he's coming back.
And I really hope he is coming back, right? Because how old is he? He's what, 19, 20?
It's like
No?
23.
Is he? Okay, so he's a little older than I thought. Well, the reason I even brought up his age, because he is still pretty young, and I think he fits right into the core of what Powell and Coach Stockley, former Coach Stockley, I should say, are looking for. Right? They want that
Yeah.
young core to develop, just like we were talking about with Lou City. Right? They had their core that brought them to 9 straight Eastern Conference appearances, Eastern Conference final appearances. That's exactly what Powell and Coach Stockley want. Right? He's shaking
They
his
want
head.
they do want that core um type thing, but it's also developing pieces around it and that sort of thing. It was like, all I will tell people is that Coach Powell is he has a system in place. He's very, from what the way Stockley has talked and what I've heard of him. I have yet to personally meet him, but from what I've heard of him in my talks and stuff with the club, is like him and Stockley are very much on the same page. So if you've paid attention to Stockley's interviews and stuff last year, very similar terminology is coming out, very similar ideas and plans. So these two are very much appear to be on the same page with the same ideology.
And I think that's what makes all of this super interesting, right? Like, we both know from our conversation with Coach Stockley that the youth has always been his focus, right? And I think Coach Powell fits exactly into that mold for what they're looking for as a whole organization, right? And I think when we're looking at next year being such a big year, right? New stadium coming in online in August of next year, women's professional team getting started up next year, right? It's going to be a lot of change, but I think having that key focus with the same goals and desires in mind of developing the youth in the club to compete, not to downplay next season, because Lexington with a similar performance next year could easily find its way into the playoff. But I think they're building a solid base for 25. And I think that's going to be even more of a great success than season 1 and 2 could be, or season 1 was, or season 2 could be.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I can't. I like the hire. I really like the hire. I'm just curious to who he brings in now and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's gonna be where I kind of go from is like who he brings in and how's that gonna look.
Yeah. Have you heard of? I know you mentioned that he had a list. Have you heard any scuttlebutt about who could be on that list?
I have no idea about this list.
Okay.
Um,
Just asking.
my like Lex had a lot of turnover. My source is one of the newer people there. They just know, um, they know of the list. They don't know the list themselves. I bet that he's very Powell's keeping everything very close to the chest and wants to keep stuff close to the chest. Type of
Gotcha.
thing. So
Well, and he has to, right? Like, you don't want it getting out there that he's targeting a player, because if
yeah,
another team is also interested, now you're in a bidding war, right?
yes.
And that's not good for Lexington. But John, so kind of overall, I want to close out this segment. I want to give you the floor here as the biggest Lexington supporter that I know of, right? As a fan, how does this feel? Does this feel like progress? Does this feel like somebody that you think could really help the team? Or is this a little bit off kilter from what you were looking for?
Um, it's progress. It's definitely progress. Type thing. I'm very curious to see where they go with all this and how they um develop
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing, where they come from, in a sense. Um, it's honestly now like I like the hire. I like his playing style. He has some things that Inter Miami has put out on YouTube involving him that I very much like. That sort of thing. I gotta see who he brings in, that sort of thing, because that's like I like his playing style, but I need to see how these players he's gonna bring in fit into that style, that sort of thing. It's like this is my thing with any coaches, like in all sports. Like, yeah, a coach is great, but now let's see what players they have, and that's the thing. We don't really know what players Lexington has yet. If there was more of a formality with the roster, I could say more, but I don't. We don't fully know who's like we know of two players basically. We don't even have a starting 11, so I can't really speak on like
It's
how
starting
this is
two.
gonna go. How this is gonna go with him when I don't necessarily know what players are gonna be there.
You have as many players right now as the Pac-12 has teams left for next year. But John, we'll skip on over back to Louisville now, and we'll talk a lot about Racing Louisville, as they have had several signings. To kick us off here, I want to talk about Racing Louisville re-signing backup keeper Jordan Bloomer. Racing Louisville re-signed the keeper through the 24 season with a team option for the 2025 season. Bloomer said that she was super grateful to re-sign with Racing, and she was excited about the potential for next season. Racing goalkeeper coach Gonzalez said that Bloomer's development in the 2022 and during her loan period with an Australian club really showed that she can compete for an NWSL role. GM Ryan Dells said that Bloomer's progress in her recovery from her knee injury is truly inspiring, as he is really looking forward to seeing what she can do and getting back on the field for next year. So, John, Racing Louisville, in short, re-signs a 25-year-old keeper who was the 10th overall pick in the 2022 draft. Uh, I think this is going to be a really great competition between Jordan Bloomer and Katie Lund next year. As Katie Lund is also on the roster for next year, her contract goes through the 24 season. John, what are your thoughts on Bloomer rejoining Racing Louisville?
It's interesting. Because to me, it's really interesting based on how Katie Lund has done. Wait. Yeah. Sorry. Couldn't remember. They've signed some people. It's
Yeah,
interesting
there's a
based on
long list.
how Katie Lund has done, because that role is Lund's to lose. Like, I don't see, it does not matter how good Bloomer does in practice or that thing, in my opinion. She's not going to earn it until Lund does something to give it up. Like, it's not open for crack. Now, but how long's Lund's contract?
So it goes through the 24 season, at least
Lund's?
according to the press release. So they're both
So
going to
this
be free agents by the end of next season. Well,
that
no,
is
Bloomer has an team option for 25. So maybe
all
it's a
right. So
competition year.
this might appear of like, all right, let's see how Lund does in a second year,
Yep.
and it will determine how we go forward. And it's also curious of what coach they bring in. Personally, I will say this: I do not like signing players without coaches. I
I
understand
agree.
the system, but if this coach walks in and is like, I don't like them as my keeper, what are you going to do now? Type thing. Like, it could just be whoever you bring in, and they could have someone in, they just haven't finalized it or whatever it is. Whoever you bring in, that's where I'm like, you need to talk with them. And just, it could be a 2-day talk before you even announce anything of like, what's your thoughts on this person? What's your thoughts on this person? Type thing. All that sort of sense. Should we just let them go? Should we type thing? Because free agency, like, they can't officially sign or announce it until the 20th, I think it is, because free agency started today, so they can talk with players,
They
but they
just
can't
can't
like
make announcements.
officially sign until the 20th. And that's concerning to me, is that free agency has started and Racing Louisville doesn't have a coach.
I agree. I think that is a bit troubling. I've talked a lot before on the show. Like, I'm an American football guy. Like, that's how I grew up, right? And I always remember hearing, oh my god, I just dropped his name. He was the coach of the Bills and the Patriots, Cowboys. Oh my god, not Bill Belichick. Anyways, I can't remember his name, but he would always say, like, as a coach, you can't expect them to be a gourmet chef if they don't have gourmet ingredients to cook with. So as a coach, he wanted to be more of the on the player personnel choosing side and be like a coach general manager thing. And I think that plays out in soccer as well, right? Like, we were just talking about Lexington with their new coach, right? Free agency hasn't started in the USL one yet, has it, John?
Kind of. They can't sign anybody until
Parcells. Thank you to the person in the chat that said that. Let me throw that up here. Thank you for that. Bill Parcells. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
they can't sign anybody yet officially, but like we've seen people like Rhode Island's allowed to sign because they're an expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
Some players, they're really the only team I've seen outside of some teams welcoming guys back. Like you can welcome people back. I think you can re-sign or do contract extensions. Not December 1st is when the USL like official signing is.
Now, do they do top down? Like League Champion and League One can start signing at the same time?
I'm not sure. I'm not even sure how, like, if Trevor Amon has officially signed with Sacramento. I'm not really sure how that worked, but it's gonna be curious. I've found some disclosure documents I'm still looking over to get more of a sense of the rules and stuff.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Michael in the chat here. Key lime pie is absolutely the best pie. Spot on agreement there. And while I'm in the chat here, recognizing Kino's comment here, Bowling Green does come up with a lot of talent, yet comes up short when producing big players. I think that's absolutely true. And I think, not to get too far off what we were talking about here, but I'm really interested to see what the Golden Lions do this coming year. Still have not heard confirmation that they are coming back, but with a new confirmed USL or UPSL, team in place in town, it's going to get very interesting for them. But John, bouncing back to Racing Louisville, another signing that they've had, they re-signed midfielder Maddie Pokeny.
Pocono.
Thank you. To a new contract, new 2-year contract through the 2025 season. The 26-year-old originally joined racing temporarily as a World Cup replacement, but she absolutely earned her spot for the rest of the season and moving forward, obviously. She said that she was super pumped to sign with a great club like Racing Louisville, and she couldn't believe that this was actually happening. GM Ryan Dells said that she embodied the club's values as they look forward to continue to develop her here in Louisville. Maddie made 11 appearances in her first season with Racing Louisville, highlighted by an assist on a late equalizer against Orlando. And Pokeny is known as one of the most energetic, hardworking players to feature in several different positions within her first year with the team. John, any thoughts here on the re-signing of midfielder Maddie for Racing Louisville?
I think it's really good. It's good for the league.
Mm-hmm.
Or not necessarily the league. It's good for racing, as she, I think, had a lot of help, or she did a lot of good, I should say, for the league. And I keep saying league. For racing. She played very well for racing. She's a good player. I feel like she plays off of Sav very well. They play well together. She also does as a kind of good sub-ish for Sav. So I feel like overall it's a good like depth signing piece as well as like potential starter piece.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with it. I think it's a good bench player, a good locker room person to have, but I don't think it's it's not going to change the future of Racing Louisville, right? Like, yes, she's going to come in and continue to do what she's been doing, but it's not. She's not like a Messi level player, It's not that life changing. One of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about was this concept of Racing Louisville re-signing and keeping this core of players together. So specifically the ones that we know are coming back because of their contract for next year. We talked about Katie Lund, defender Lauren Millett, and Carson Pickett are coming back. Midfielder Ari Burgess, Savannah DeMillo, and Jalen Howell, as well as forward Paige Monahan. So this is a strong core group of players. You put in another piece or two to that, and I think this team is ready, set, and off next year, off to the races. See what I did there? They're gonna break from the gates very very fast. Horse racing references here.
It's gonna. I'm very curious to how the draft and free agency fully goes for them.
Yeah, because they have what? Did they get a top 5 pick in the draft?
I meant more the expansion draft, but let me look.
Oh, gotcha. Because I
Well,
know at one point they were.
well, that's why I like talk to Zach. Like
Mhm.
Zach, I asked what 9 players would you protect, and he got to like 11 that he would want them to protect. So that's the issue. You have
Yeah.
players like who are you going to protect, that sort of thing. Um, the draft is going to be. Let me. I don't think they've released the 2024. It's going to be on U.S. It's going to be on December 15th. Here, I'm going to read some on this.
You're good. I'll just kind of jump in while you're doing that. I think just kind of wrapping up here, Maddie's addition to the team. It's great, especially if anybody gets any injuries, small injuries, or anything where they need a good sub off the bench. I think she's great for that. I'll be very interested to see if she is more of a spot starter next year, or if she does make her way into the permanent starting 11 alongside Savannah DeMillo and Ari Burgess. I think that could be a potent midfield, to say the least. And Jalen, what's her last name? Howell as well. But while John is looking that up, I'll kind of briefly start our transition to the last bit of news from Racing Louisville here. They actually did have a departure from this past season's team. Amina Ekik has departed from Racing Louisville as she is signed with an Australian club. The former Racing Louisville star signed with Melbourne City as a free agent as her contract was up. Um, Reading through my notes here. Racing waived Ekik so that she could join Melbourne City early for their 2023-2024 A-League Women's Division season. Ekik is one of Racing Louisville's original players, drafted number 5 overall in the 2021 season. She scored 3 goals and 38 appearances over those 3 seasons. And she holds a special place for the club and for the fans, right? As she was the first ever regular season goal scorer for Louisville. And she's a Louisville native, right? She went to the University of Louisville. She played for the University of Louisville. So I think as a fan here, seeing Ekik go to Melbourne City is a big loss. John, if you found the date, feel free to add it. But otherwise, kind of what are your thoughts on Ekik leaving?
I don't know the draft date per se.
Or the draft
From
order?
what I found, it's going to be December 15th. The order, it looks like they're going to be 6th
Okay,
with the 2 expansion teams.
gotcha.
But Ekik leaving, it seems like, because she was loaned to Melbourne prior.
Yep.
So to me, it seems like she liked her time in Melbourne. Now, she got hurt there.
Yep.
And that affected, I think it was last season, or it might have been even this season. It affected her saying this. I think she liked being in Melbourne. And I think it was she needed a change of scenery type deal or a feeling of that sort sense. Because, but it's curious. I'm curious, like how it happened because they waived her. So what is fancy to just say they cut her?
Yep.
So I'm really curious if like she just wanted out like he didn't want to be there anymore. What could have caused that per se, type thing. It just seemed how it happened seemed very weird to me.
Yeah. And, now that I'm really, kind of thinking about their roster here on the attacking side, on the forward specifically, they're pretty thin. Do we know if Thimby is coming back?
I believe they had re-signed her before the season ended.
Okay, so I must have overlooked that then. Yeah, so Thimby coming back, that's a big help. Did I see that Kristen Davis was leaving?
Um,
For some reason, I feel like I saw
I
that, but maybe I feel like I dream things up half the time, whether they come true or not. I feel like that's just how my brain be sometimes. um,
uh, there's no reports of her leaving.
okay, so hopefully Kristen does stay. But if she does leave, or if they do lose any more depth there, they could be hurting on the attacking end. Really just relying on Page and Thimby to push forward, right?
There's Kanu, there's Wang, so it's going to be curious for how they go with that. I feel like they had. Did they lose Monahan?
No. She's still there. She was one of
So
those
it's
listed as like the
yeah,
core players, and Wang is a midfielder, or at least that's how she's
she's an
listed.
attacking.
Yes,
She's an attacking midfielder.
true.
That means she's part of the attack.
Well, yes, but also so would Savannah DeMillo, Ari Burgess. Uh,
No, Savannah DeMello is a traditional center mid or a holding mid too. She can play on the attack, but she's more of a box to box, where an attacking midfielder is more in the attack.
right. So I think either way, the departure of Ekik kind of hurts a little bit of the depth. Maybe it's not as bad as I was initially thinking, because I think you brought up some good points there. But sad to see her go. She held such a strong hold in Racing Louisville fans' hearts. I'm just going to be really interested to see what they do this offseason to kind of reinforce their attack and to kind of replace one of the core players on the team. But John, let's step a little bit outside of the Commonwealth here. We got a couple other stories to follow up on before we jump down to the college ranks. Um, Emma Hayes was named the new head coach of the United States women's national team. Emma is coming to Team USA from a very successful campaign at Chelsea in England, where she won many titles over her past 11 years as the coach at Chelsea. She started her coaching career in the U.S. in the early 2000s before returning to England. Hayes will finish her current season with Chelsea before officially joining the USWNT in 2024, which is about 2 months prior to the Olympics. And I think that is going to be a fascinating time frame to join, because she is going to have very little time to prepare for the Olympics, right?
Who? Sorry.
The women's national team coach.
Oh, Emma Hayes.
Yeah.
I don't. Sorry,
You're good.
it's been a rough day.
Absolutely,
I
brother.
don't. I think she'll be fine because she's been announced so early.
Mm-hmm.
That means she can. She can still do her. She can come in on international breaks.
Yeah.
So I don't think she's gonna be head coach until after Chelsea ends. But I don't see why she wouldn't, on occasional international breaks, travel
Mm-hmm.
to when the U.S. is playing, just to sit and watch. Or she might watch it at her home.
Yeah.
I feel like she'll be fine overall.
I was kind of reading through
The
the.
Olympics, are a whole different thing with the U23 rule
Mm-hmm.
type thing. So it's really weird how you handle the Olympics, because you don't Like they can only bring so many over the age of 23 players. So it's really kind of like you are kind of starting from scratch because like I think Sophia Smith you can bring, but you can't bring like Lavelle. You can't bring like Lavelle, Heath, Press. How old's DeMello?
That's exactly what I was looking at.
Done. Like there's a lot. I think Naomi Girma is might be around that age too. So there's a thing where you look at the core or who mainly played for us at the World Cup. Yes, we had a lot of first timers, but a lot of them were over the age of like 23, 25, wherever the cutoff is. So it's kind of where's the question type thing.
So
Alex Morgan,
DeMillo is 25.
yeah. So that's where you debate it. Like, who do you bring? You bring Alex Morgan, who it could possibly be her last ever international game with the major international tournament with the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he could still play at the World Cup, but that's going to be a question of her form come 2027. Do you like that's where you debate it type things like how many are you going to bring and then what type of youth do we have? And I think that's her that's going to be more of a challenge than like only having like a month to prep. It's going to be more who do I pick rather than implementing her system.
Yeah, and the article did point out, or the press release, I should say, the interim head coach Kilgore will remain in charge until Hayes joins full time. So I think Kilgore will do the majority of the
So that
preparation.
full time, I think, is the key word
Yep.
there.
Yep.
So it's basically gonna Kilgore's basically gonna act like an assistant coach that's probably gonna take Emma Hayes' marching orders.
Mm-hmm. Somebody that can work hand in hand.
Coaching on the sideline, that sort of thing. And she's like, "But I want if like Emma Hayes is like, I want to do this. He's more than likely gonna do that. I don't see why he wouldn't. Now he could. He's like, no, I'm interim. I'm gonna do what I want, but we'll see."
Absolutely. Hayes is currently the highest paid women's coach at Chelsea, and she was named the best women's coach by FIFA in 2021.
Speaking of,
Yes.
have you heard the thing that Chelsea was like prepared to pay her 3 to 4 times more
No, I didn't hear
of
that.
what she made? She makes 25K,
Jesus.
250K, or that's ballpark of what she makes because her deal with the U.S. is like 1.8 million
Uh-huh.
as be the coach. So the report came out that Chelsea was willing to pay her 3 to 4 times what she currently makes in order to like match. But I guess that 1.8 was too much type thing. So that ballparks her at the minimum around 250K. The fact that they were willing to not only double 3 to 4 times more her salary, I feel if I heard that from them, I was like, I'm leaving regardless.
Right.
You could have been paying me more, and you're
Uh-huh.
choosing not to.
Right.
I'm gonna leave to the team that obviously like approached me with the amount first, not this lower amount. Now, yes, club is a little bit like Chelsea. When she started at Chelsea, is a whole different ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of like she won all that stuff and it goes like, hey, we'll increase your salary now because of what
Because
you've done
somebody
for
else
us.
wants to steal you.
It caused someone else coming in
Mm-hmm.
for that to come up. It didn't say, hey, I want all these trophies. Give me like how some work businesses are like, you've been here this long, or here's you did really good on your performance review, so buy our thing, you go up in salary. Chelsea didn't do that. Like if I'm an owner, my coach is doing really good. If I have the money, I'm going to increase their salary. Now, if it's at a point where they're already one of the higher paid ones, that's different.
Right.
And yes, she was one of the higher paid club ones. But still, if you're hearing the headhunting, try to prevent the headhunting.
Well, and I think that's just one of the massive unfortunate parts of women's soccer, right, in the world. They're not going to be paid what
It's
they're
the
worth, and that is
it's the
absolutely awful.
unfortunate it's the unfortunate thing with women's soccer. It's the unfortunate thing with like the USL
Yep.
and like the whole thing with Chattanooga Football Club that has happened and all that sort of sense of I think people don't realize how different the soccer landscape as a whole has changed post pandemic. I feel like the pandemic really helped soccer as a whole. People were able to watch more sports. People were able to get into different sports. A lot of American sports like got put back on a back burner. I think people realized how much they missed in person stuff, so that increased all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially women's soccer has benefited hugely. Like that's the women's Super League or whatever they call it in England, and the Premier, female La Liga Feminal, all that sort of stuff. The only like legitimate women's league was like the NWSL and the Bundesliga female. Like in terms of clubs that were somewhat legit, taking it seriously, type thing. Like there's a even you could argue the NWSL wasn't because there's some photo with since Gotham won back when they were called Sky Blue in 2019, where they're playing at like looks to be a high school stadium
Mm-hmm.
type thing. Like post pandemic, it's just been insane,
Right.
the blow up type thing, and so I think that's a lot of people that haven't seen that type of deal, especially with like the USL and all that sort of thing. Like it's a whole different world we're in right now.
Well, and I think to really emphasize your point here, I'll use that as a transition point to talk about our two kind of last big stories before we dive into a little bit of college. New media rights deals. The NWSL specifically announced a landmark 4-year media rights contract with CBS, ESPN, Amazon Prime Video, and Scripps starting in 2024. The
I really hope with this deal it's similar to how the NFL does their deals. And it's based on like what day you play,
mm-hmm.
sort of thing. Because if it's generally going to change week by week, it's going to be stupid.
And
If it's like the prime time game
mm-hmm.
is on ESPN, and if you're kicking off on the midday of a Saturday or a Friday, you're going to be on Amazon, and Scripps is for like Challenge Cup or whatever type thing they come up with, I'm fine with that because that's kind of consistent. That's sort of with the NFL type thing. Or release, like when you release the schedule, release what channel it's going to be on or whatever it is. If it's literally like it could change every week, this is going to be really bad for the league. But he's good. But in terms
Yeah,
of
the money is
fan
great.
following, it's going to be bad. Like the MLS has experienced the issue with fan following being put behind a double paywall.
Mm-hmm. But at least with the MLS, if you have your team, you know it's only on one place,
Well,
right?
yeah, the MLS has the issue behind the double paywall, but
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, it's still the best streaming deal
Yeah.
for any of the top 5 sports in America.
And I think
Like, there's no blackouts. It's a one-time fee. It's a short fee. You have unlimited replays. You can watch whatever you want, whenever you want. No other the other big 4 leagues is like that. That's my one issue. My only issue with the NWSL deal is the 4 platforms.
and I think it's really going to be similar to a lot of these college football media rights deals that you've seen. So CBS will get the majority of the NWSL championship games, right? Like that top level, the playoffs, all of that will be on a version of a CBS network, whether
Which
that's
is
CBS,
good.
CBS Sports Network, or what have you, right?
It's
ESP,
good outside of CBS Sports Network because that's
yeah.
like the hardest thing out of those to get for
Hmm.
some reason.
But if you have Paramount Plus, you get it.
True.
Yeah. ESPN acquired a package of 20 plus games. And I do that in
So that
quotations because I don't know what in the world that means. I think that's going to go to your
to
point there of
me,
like, it's going to be random
Prime
spotty games, right?
It's going to be random spotty games, but I think that's the prime time games.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the league like how NBC has the flex thing with the NFL games. They can flex a game into Sunday night type thing. It's a normal Sunday game. They can't
Mm-hmm.
like take a Monday night game and move it or a Thursday night game and move it, but they can take like, oh, you're supposed to kick off at 1, now you're kicking off at 8
See,
because you're a better matchup
I interpreted that the
than
little opposite of that. I thought it sounded more like the ESPN games were going to be like those bottom tier games that no other major network wanted. Because if you look at the Prime Video part, we'll have 25 Friday night games. Scripps will air 50 Saturday night doubleheader games on their Ion network. So to me, the
okay.
ESPN
So
ones just seem to be
this
the
is very,
leftovers.
but they're gonna. I feel like they can take these leftovers into Prime. ESPN might be getting what the new Challenge Cup is,
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever it is. That could be what it's dealing because like ESPN has like the FA Cup,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have the Premier League
Right.
type stuff. So that could be what it is. I'm curious if this is ESPN proper
Oh, I'm
or
sure it's
is it
not.
all just ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I'm sure it's
Well,
ESPN
they
Plus.
could throw it on ESPN too. Um, but it's gonna be very curious what happens type thing, how it goes. Because also they retain. Do they retain local contracts or no?
So the remainder of the games that are not on CBS, ESPN, not a Friday night or not a Saturday game, will not be nationally distributed and will be put on direct to consumer platforms. So I'm assuming I don't know if that's your regional sports networks or if there's an NWSL live kind of a service that they're going to start offering.
I have no idea. um, I feel like every anything they do this, they need to do a local broadcast rights deal because we are seeing it more and more that being on TV is good.
Yes.
Like as much with this cord cutting stuff is that I think people don't understand how like still you need to be plugged into TV some way
Mm-hmm.
to watch it, or it hurts you in some ways. So them saying with CBS is good. Them saying with ESPN or being with ESPN is good. The scripts and the Amazon Prime is fine ish. I want to see if my biggest worry is the NFL was an issue last year
Yeah.
with the Amazon Prime. My biggest worry is are they going to go through the same growing pains or has Amazon Prime figured it out thanks to dealing with the NFL? Has Amazon Prime figured out how to do live sports or is it going to be growing pains this year?
I think it'll be a little bit of growing pains to start the year, but I think by mid-year they should have it pretty much figured out, right? Because they've done it for the NFL. You take that model and you apply it to another sport.
Fair, but we'll see how they do. I'm curious what broadcasters they bring in, who they bring in,
Mm-hmm.
what broadcasting styles do they keep, like kind of keep everything the same, or does everyone have their own little different thing? Unique style. That's what I'm really curious about. The one I'm most curious about is scripts,
Mm-hmm.
like Ion Network.
Mm-hmm. Just
That
a regular network.
so random.
It is. It's very random, and especially
I
because
don't like.
Scripps
I've
owns
heard
a
the
lot of
Ion
channels.
Network. Yeah, I've heard the Ion Network, but I don't even know what their content is.
Nope, not a clue. I thought it was like a version of like Hallmark TV, like that kind of
But even with
programming.
that, like imagine saying, "What channel is the NWSL or the racing?" Oh, it's on the Hallmark channel. Like
Yeah.
at least with the networks have been around long enough. And for those that don't know, the networks are ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Hmm.
That they had dabbled in the sports game prior, and them doing sports is nothing new or weird.
Yeah, the NBA
ESPN
on
exists for
NBC.
sports. Yeah, the ESPN literally exists solely for sports. Um, Amazon Prime has gone into this live sports coverage thing type thing. Scripps.
Now, Scripps was in on the Pac-12 media rights deal before that
You
fell
want the
through.
worst media rights deal that any Power Five conference ever signed,
Well, they didn't
and
sign
it's
it, but
the reason that you have a West Coast college in the ACC.
yeah, that makes no sense. I'm sorry to Stanford and to Cal. That makes no sense. I don't get that
Well,
one.
here's the thing: Cal is at least somewhat inland. Like Berkeley's a little inland, a little. It's not that much, but it's a little inland. Stanford's like the campus is like almost on the coast,
Yeah,
so you literally are having teams like
coast to
Florida
coast.
State
Yeah,
that are on the coast. Granted, Florida State I think technically isn't on the Atlantic
it's
coast.
not. It's
They're
in
on
the Gulf.
the Gulf Coast,
Hmm.
but it's still technically the Atlantic Ocean. And they're going to see the Pacific.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, even in the beloved Big Ten, you're going to have Iowa, my team, playing out in Washington. You're going to have Iowa playing against USC.
to, to be fair to the Big Ten and like the Big 12, their names aren't regional. Their names are number based, which is stupid, and they need to change them now.
They're never
But it's
going
not
to.
like
The brand is too strong.
I know, but it's not like the Atlantic Coast Conference or the Big East Conference or the Southeastern Conference or the Mountain West Conference.
Right.
Like if your name is just kind of like a number or like the Patriot Conference or Conference USA, to me, that doesn't like you can just be kind of anywhere. There's no like
No
regional
regionality.
identity
Yeah.
with that. But if you're the Pacific Athletic Coast or the Pacific Athletic Conference or the Southern Eastern Conference, and you have teams that aren't in that area or on the other side of the country, that's a problem.
Well, that was like even several years ago. Texas and Oklahoma threatened to leave the Big 12 for the Pac-12, and that was some of the arguments against it. Was you can't do that. You can't have a team in Texas, the middle of the country, say that they're in the Pac-12 or whatever it would have been at that time.
Yeah.
We have gotten way far off on the NWSL media rights deal. The long and the short of it is this is a massive success for the NWSL, a lot more exposure for the league. And I'm excited. I know Ion is an odd choice, but the concept of having a Friday night primetime game on Amazon and then two back-to-back prime time events on Saturday nights on Ion Network, I think is fantastic because then if you could supplement something on CBS Sports Network on Sunday at noon, you're basically replicating college footballs or high school, college, and NFL schedules into the spring season, right? I think that could be massive. But
Yeah.
the NWSL was not the only one to sign a new media rights deal, and this one I'm not happy about. The USL has signed a new media rights deal with CBS as CBS acquires the rights to air 100 USL matches across their annual platform or their annual seasons between 2023 through 2027. This is the biggest TV deal that the USL has ever had and promises to have massive exposure for the league. Select matches will air on CBS TV networks and simulcast on Paramount Plus for the first time in USL history, that they will be shown on a network TV schedule consistently, and that is a huge milestone. During the season, CBS Sports Network will have 20 games. The remaining 75 will be streamed on the Golazo network, as well as multiple other platforms like Paramount Plus. John, this is huge for CBS. To me, I think it's a massive L for the USL. What are your thoughts?
Why? Why is it a massive L?
Because
You're talking about the best soccer network right now.
ugh, I hate Paramount Plus. It's just another thing that people have to sign up for. We've already got ESPN. We've already got
Hold,
Amazon. And now we
Hold
have
up.
to sign up for Paramount Plus. And I know
Pause.
they
Pause.
have a
Pause.
lot. I'm going to get there. Hold on. I know they already have a lot of other soccer. And so, from a soccer's perspective, it is a pivotal platform for soccer, right? But for me, as a casual soccer fan, dang it.
Have you ever watched Golazio?
No, and from what I've heard, it's fantastic. And I've seen some of their like YouTube stuff, like where they've taken clips from their shows, and it's really high quality. It's done very well. I don't want to disrespect anybody who is working on those shows because they're definitely putting their full effort into it, right? I just didn't want to have to sign up for something else.
And like I understand that, and I've seen complaints about that. And here's what I tell people: I've run the numbers on all this stuff. You can basically have, for the cost of cable,
Which I
you
still
can
have.
have, and that's your first mistake. For the cost of cable, you can basically have every single main streaming service that's out there, like Hulu, Netflix, all of them, and you can have basically like their top level
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Apple TV. Now that's not including like
The
adding
MLS
on Apple
package
TV
or
stuff.
anything.
If you did the monthly rates, it's basically the cost of cable, and you get, in my opinion, more because you have on-demand stuff, you have all this type of stuff, and like I grew up with cable. Cable on demand was stupid. It was never good stuff, or if
No,
it
it's
was only for
terrible.
like a week. It was only for like a week they had good stuff on it. But CBS is the best American network covering, or American television anything covering soccer at this moment. ESPN could care less about soccer outside of like Football
And
Americans.
that breaks
Have
my
you
heart, man.
ESPN FC is so
It's
bland. It's a
dead.
30-minute show that they run 5 days a week, and they only talk about like the big six clubs of the Premier League and how they do in the Champions League. They don't talk about anything else. Football Americas is a American focused thing. They've talked about the USL. They talk about that sort of thing. It's good. Golazio is literally a 24/7 network. Now, like Sports Center was, or ESPN was, when it wasn't really showing live events all the time. Yes, that's reruns at night.
Mm-hmm.
That's reruns. But they have morning footy. They have their Champions League coverage. They have all this stuff that they're running. They have literally this stuff that they're going to have to talk about the USL. They will have to. So you're having the USL being talked about on a major network consistently, not just like the random here and there type feel good stories that come out or semi big stories. They're going to consistently talk about the league type thing. It's going to be a minute because this deal came at the end of the season type thing, but they're going to consistently talk about the league. I'm very curious how they do off season stuff. I'm seeing how that goes. And that's another thing. And that's my biggest thing out of it is, yes, it's only 100 games, and it'll likely still be on ESPN Plus or locally, depending on how that's determined. That's still yet to come out. But they're consistently going to be talked about on a major network.
And Paramount Plus needs to kind of update some language to fully encapsulate this. Like, just because I'm literally looking at the website right now, picking your plan, right? You can do your Paramount Plus Essentials for $6 a month, which is cheap. Like, that is one of the cheapest streaming services there is. And with that, you get your NFL on CBS and your UEFA Champions League. But if you go to
Mm-hmm.
the Paramount Plus with Showtime, you also then get CBS and college football. And I don't understand what the difference is there on those two things. So
I think it means you get CBS proper that you can watch on Paramount Plus, because I have Paramount Plus. I go to like live TV.
mhm.
I can watch like WKYT
Oh, Roger. Okay.
without having to be logged into like a
A
cable
provider.
company,
Okay. And that's only $11.99
which
a
could be
month.
good because from this report, and CBS being does have local deals, local teams like local broadcasters can still exist. So Lucy can still have their WKIT CW20 type deal that they have going. Um, type thing. And I will say this from what Madison said on Instagram, we do get apparently some games will still be on ESPN. Sounds like a majority of games will be on ESPN, or YouTube is another reported platform from the Business Journal, Sports Business Journal. It sounds like ESPN. So that means to all my fans, I know it's paying for another streaming service, but if you have ESPN Plus and Paramount Plus, you basically get everything soccer besides like the Copa Libertadores and some of the South American ones because they're on like BN or like you don't get the Women's Champions League because for some reason that's on the zone. Like the more
What in the
obscure
world?
things, yeah, the more obscure ones are kind of like that people don't want, but you get majority of European teams, you get majority of American teams, or basically all of American teams, all out. And the only league you can't get with ESPN Plus or Paramount Plus is the Premier League. Solely
Michael, a
that
big
one.
fan of Paramount Plus for Serie A.
It has Serie A and has all the UEFA competitions. And it has the Scottish Premiership. It has, I believe, the Eredivisie and stuff like. For $15 a month, if you get without the Showtime package, you can have basically all the soccer you want outside of the Premier League.
But can you get the Irish Professional League and we can watch
Name me an
Bohemian
Irish professional team.
FC? Eat it. Only because, they have jerseys with Bob Marley on it.
Mm-hmm.
Look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Google it.
I know you're talking about a league that has college teams playing in it, sir.
They do. They absolutely do.
Yes. They could care. They care about soccer in Ireland, but soccer is a royalist sport as it's viewed. That's why Gaelic football exists.
But
Gaelic football was literally
can I
them
watch
going,
Wrexham? Where can I watch that live?
League Two.
Yeah. Where do I get League Two rights at?
Their deal is very weird.
Because they're on what's that big British network?
Sky Sports.
Sky. Yeah, they're on Sky Sports. Michael in the chat says ESPN Plus. That's for some games, Michael.
Yeah.
Is that for all of their games or just some?
Some League Two games are shown on ESPN Plus. However, the main is through iFollow.
Oh, I've seen that, and it's something you have to pay for.
Yeah. But that's the thing. You're getting down to the 4th division of English football.
We don't even have 4 divisions in America. Well, we do, but you're talking about the UPSL at that point.
We don't have 4 fully professional divisions.
Yeah.
And England has 5. So.
Well, the long and the short of that one, it is a good deal for the USL, especially to get more exposure on CBS, because I think that's one of the things that is going to hurt the MLS in the long run is the lack of cable exposure. So I think if CBS can really put a good product on the screen, right? Obviously, the USL has to take care of the product on the field. But if CBS can do what they've done with the NFL and Golazo can do what it does for, continue to talk about the league continuously, I think it should be a really good deal for the USL, even though I said it was a massive L at the start of this conversation. You've convinced me, John. Dang nabbit. I will sign up and I will get Paramount Plus. Or I won't.
Good.
Who knows?
It's good quality. They got a lot of stuff on there, too. It's because it's CBS.
Right. So,
now,
John,
my question is Fox.
Yes.
Fox, for some reason, has not figured out the streaming game at all.
That's okay. It can die. I don't know, man.
Fox Sports is good.
Yeah, Fox Sports is good, and they care about like Team USA.
I'm just, but that's the issue. Like, they don't have a streaming service where you can pay for streaming. You have to have a cable TV, or you have to either have cable or you have to have like antenna type thing. They
Because
need to figure out a way to get in the streaming game.
because what all does Fox have? So they've got the
They have the
men's
World
team
Cup.
in the World Cup. They've
The
got.
men's team is on HBO Max now.
Is it only on HBO Max?
I don't fully know, but it's on HBO. I know that. That's the way you can stream it. But
Hmm.
like the World Cup, you can't. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's
that's on
really
Fox.
weird. But they have like they had the NFL, they have all this type stuff, and you can't really stream Fox.
Right. They do also have the Saudi Pro League, not a very popular league. One that I will occasionally watch a match
Very
on.
popular. It's a league that's outside of four big clubs. Its own fans are boycotting.
Wow. Why you gotta say four clubs when you know my team is like the fifth or maybe sixth best club? Why you gotta do that to me, John?
No, it's like the four clubs the state took over. Four or five
Oh,
clubs the
right.
state took over and was funneling money into it. And yada yada. There's a lot of stuff going on about this, but our producer could probably speak
Oh,
more onto this than
absolutely.
I can.
Maybe that's another topic for another day. John, let's jump on down to the college ranks, where for the most part, most seasons are wrapped up, but a couple of things that we wanted to highlight here. One, the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky men's teams both qualified for the NCAA Division One soccer tournament. UK qualified somehow. I still do not understand how they were the very last team chosen. And if you were a mid-major team that did not
They're
get picked, you need to look at UK and put a giant target on their back because that team
they're
stole
very,
your. They did not belong in the tournament.
they're the very last team because they beat number one and number two right before the conference finals.
Yeah, but that's all they've done all year. Like they were not great the majority of the year. You can't just win two games at the end and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm in, we're back. No, get out of here. I hope you get beat 6-0.
I don't think they'll get beat 6-0, but they'll likely lose. Louisville is also questionable to me as well.
But they were more consistent, especially
They were
early in
more
the year.
consistent. They were more consistent. They're not as questionable as Kentucky, but
Mm-hmm.
Louisville was very more consistent. What side of the bracket are they on?
They're on
Like,
opposite sides, I
I
believe.
know, but like if Kentucky wins their match, they face number two Notre Dame, so they're like considered like one
Who
of the
Louisville,
worst teams.
right?
Yeah, like who's Louisville's number team?
I'm going to race you to see who can find this faster. Come on, internet. Okay, so UK. Oh, there's a second half to the bracket. I was like, where the hell are they? They would go on to play Notre Dame, like you said, and then potentially a Duke or a Western Michigan to go to
So
the Final
Louisville's on the
Four.
fifth side.
Yeah.
If they win, they will face fifth seeded West Virginia. For those people
Yeah.
that don't know, the men's soccer bracket they rank the 16 teams that are the best 16 in their opinion. So calling a team a 16th seed is not bad in this sense. They're the 16th best team in that tournament, and they all get byes to the second round.
Yep.
And then other teams get paired up, and then they get the winners of those matchups. So Louisville is playing Dayton
They're
at
hosting Dayton,
they're
which is
hosting Dayton,
interesting.
which means they are considered a top
But they-
32, the next
yeah.
top 16.
Mhm.
They're like 17 through 32 area is what
Yeah.
they're viewed as. But they're hosting Dayton at their stadium, and then they'll go and face West Virginia if they win, which I think they will.
Yeah, I think they
Kentucky,
should
on
be.
the other hand, is being hosted by Xavier,
Yeah,
and
which is not
if
a
they win,
long trip. That's a short trip up the
no,
road to.
everything they
St.
do this kind of regionally as well.
Mhm.
Western Michigan's playing Green Bay,
Well,
Pittsburgh's playing James Madison.
kind of. If you look back to the Louisville quadrant, right, the other play-in type game is Vermont and Rider, which are two Northeast schools. Who then, if the winner of that will go down to UCF, Central Florida, that's not really regional.
Well, I meant the like first round matchups.
Yeah.
Then it's
And
by ranking.
And then if you look over at like another part of the bracket, you got Indiana and Lipscomb, which is semi-regional, and then you go play a Wake Forest, and I get how that's
Like
semi-regional,
I
but
said,
that's a huge region.
first round is regional. After that, it's based on rankings.
Yeah.
So they're taking like they look at the other teams and they rank the 16 through or the 17 through 32, and then they go, all right, of the rest of the 16 that we gave a at large bid to, who's kind of closest to them, and then that's how they match up, and then they go from there. That's all I care about. That first matchup, and then everything else is different.
Well, John, I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge of all of these teams. I do feel quite confident in agreeing with you that Kentucky will lose to Xavier in the first round. But I think U of L, I think they beat Dayton, and then I think they upset West Virginia. And then if they're playing at UCF, or by some chance Vermont or Rider, I like their chances to make it to the Final Four, which is, of course, hosted in, you guessed it, Louisville, Kentucky.
They need to
That will
get
be
4 wins to do that, though.
four.
Follow the bracket.
Oh, yeah. So they would, yeah. So they'd have to be UCF, and then they'd have to be either like Georgetown, Pittsburgh, James Madison, UCLA, one of those teams coming out. Which they played
Yeah,
Pittsburgh
so
close. James Madison is very good. Georgetown good. UCLA beatable but good.
they're on the weaker side. They're on the weakest side of the bracket,
Yeah.
so they have a chance at it, but they have to get 4 wins. To they have to get if they win tomorrow, they have to get 3 other wins to return home.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, not their home stadium, but to return to Louisville.
Right.
Which I don't know about you, but my credentials got approved for the College Cup.
They did. Mine also got approved for that. So I'm not for sure about Friday night of the College Cup yet because my wife has some plans that day. So travel times and blah blah blah. I might be able to make it up Friday night, but definitely for the championship game on that Monday. My plans are to go there. We'll give you full access. Y'all know what we do when we go to these games. We'll have a pre-show for the
My
final
issue
and a
is
post-show.
I would like to make both. My issue is what time
Yeah,
they will be.
and also how bleeping cold will it be?
It doesn't matter. We're in the press box.
Yeah. Well, unless you you think about how the press box, yes, there's the inside portion, but that whole row where we were recording last time, that's also press row. So
We're
hopefully they
not.
don't shove us out there.
Well, that's the thing. We're considered print, and they had those tables back there. I'll gladly stand behind people and use the tables like behind us
Oh yeah.
than sit outside.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hell, I'll go sit in the bathroom if I have to. Anyways, uh, for some of the non-Division One teams, and John, you were telling me about this. Lindsey Wilson, Union College, Cumberland's all making it to the NAIA tournament
Men's
for the men's side. Thank you very
as
much.
all as at large bids. So Lindsey Wilson's a 2 seed.
Yep. And they definitely seem to be a favorite for the title, or one of the favorites for the title. So that will be interesting to keep track of. I did see Asbury on the men's side also made it to the NCCAA regional tournament, where they
Which
faced
is
number 2 Oakland City. What were we going to say, John?
like I was just about to say, like everyone makes this tournament from what I've gathered.
Yeah.
You have to be like seriously bad to not make this tournament.
Yeah, and hey, Asbury men wound up 10-2-4 this year. A great season. They were 3-1 in conference, like 6-0 on the road. Like they had a really good year. So like they earned their spot. They will host number 2 Oakland City tomorrow night. So if you're in Wilmore or in the area, that great national regional semifinal there. The winner of that will, I believe, go to Campbellsville, who's number one in the region. Even though Asbury says that game will be at Wilmore, I don't believe it will. I think it'll be in Campbellsville. Um, the Cumberland's men will play William Penn University, which is, of course, from the great state of Iowa. Um, they will play them on Saturday, and that game will be in Oskalasa, Iowa. Yeah, I butchered that. Union, have they updated their
They
schedule?
play Indiana Wesleyan
Awesome.
in Indiana. They'll
On
play on Saturday.
Saturday. Yep. And then Campbellsville, we talked about them. They're waiting on the winner of the Asbury game, and even on the Campbellsville men's side, it says that game will be in Asbury. So, Wilmore, look at you getting to host some important matches there. But
Lindsey Wilson will host the winner of Ottawa, Kansas versus Indiana Tech on Saturday.
And then on the women's side, definitely not to be forgotten, the University of the Cumberland.
First shout out to Morehead State for the only women's team to qualify.
They
even
did.
though they got spanked by Florida State.
I totally overlooked them in what I was writing. But yes, shout out to Morehead. Congratulations to the Eagles for winning the Ohio Valley Conference tournament and making the NCAA tournament, even if they did get bounced by Florida State. Hey, as a Northern Illinois fan, I know what it feels like to get bounced by Florida State.
For those that don't know, they made the tournament with their automatic bid, and they got put up against the best team in the country.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the tournament, and goodbye. Thank you so much.
Because the women's one is actually more towards like basketball. It's more like straight matchup type thing. But that you have upsets in that, like UC Irvine upset UCLA, which was like the number 2 team in the country. So you do have upsets. I don't think any D2 school made it at all. And then Spalding women's made their tournament. The D3 tournament as well, winning the St. Louis Intercollegiate Athletics. It's a lot of long acronym. And then they got bounced too.
University of Cumberland's also made a good run in the Mid-South Conference tournament, beating Campbellsville and then losing to Cumberland.
The women are in the NAIA. Both men and women are in the NAIA tournament for Cumberland's.
Oh, yeah, you said that earlier, but it was just on their. It wasn't on their schedule, so my bad.
Because I think because Cumberland's is a top 3 team, like Lindsey Wilson, they had to wait on a winner.
Gotcha.
To see who they face. Let me look right now. They will play because they're hosting.
I did notice that they had a lot of stuff that they were hosting in Williamsburg.
Yeah, they're going to host the winner of Northwest Ohio versus Georgia Gwinnett.
Northwest Ohio, a powerhouse.
And that's at 8 p.m. That's also on Saturday. So a lot of the games are happening Saturday. UK and Louisville tomorrow.
Yep.
And then everyone else is on Saturday.
Absolutely. Moving on to our kind of final topic of the day, I want to give some final updates and congratulations to our college teams and players for doing the best performances that they have. We are working on some awards, and we will get those to the teams and players as soon as they are available. But I want to start with the College Cup. A round of applause to Union College men for winning the inaugural Bluegrass SoccerCast College Cup. They went 15-2-2 in the regular season with 5 interstate victories for a grand total of 62 points. The silver medal will go to the University of the Cumberland's women's team, who went 13-1-3 this season with a 3-0-1 record in the state for 52 points. Campbellsville men coming in third place with the bronze medal as they went 12-5-2 with a 4-2 record in state for a grand total of 49 points. And then honorable mentions to Center College women, who got 47 points, and Lindsey Wilson College men, who got 46 points. So congratulations to all of them, as it was a very interesting season to watch Union College like come from the bottom all the way to the top and really make a strong season. Something they should be very proud of.
Yeah. And they continue to rack in some awards. The Golden Boot winner was Caleb Edwards of Union. He scored 23 goals with only 1 assist. The top women's scorer was Angeline Key of Campbellsville. She's Campbellsville University. She scored 22 goals with 3 assists. And then the Golden Glove winner is Ashby Greenwell. She got this by like 1 save. 114 saves with 1 shutout for Brescia. And then the top men's keeper was Christian Altzer of Kentucky Christian, who had 108 saves.
Absolutely. So congratulations to all of our great teams and all of the great players from this past season. We look forward to getting these awards to you, and we will be in contact very, very soon. But John, that will do it for today's show. I always want to pull up our Bias Coffee account. We got the QR code right above my shoulder as always, but I'll pull it up here for the last part of the show as well. Some scheduling updates. We will be off next week celebrating Thanksgiving. And then we will look to be back the following week, pending schedules, of course. So we appreciate everybody for hanging with us tonight and watching us. Everybody who watches and shares really goes a long way to continue to build this platform. Make sure that you're following us on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and so many more. All of our handles are always at BG Soccercast. Make sure to give us a listen on all your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, YouTube, and so many more. When you're on those channels, make sure that you hit that subscribe or follow button, as well as that you share our show so that we can continue to grow this platform. As always, I'm Jimmy, that's John, and we will see you on the next one.